of the Terrorisk podcast. This is going to be episode 66. I am joined here today with Carmen.
Happy to be here, Chris. Glad to be here once again.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover today. We got a whole lot to talk about, deep divers.
Cool. Are we going to? I would like to return for episode 69, especially since we have bisexual lighting going on here, like an episode of Euphoria.
The big deal is going to be episode 150 because statistically, that is when podcasts fall off.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to at least.
Well, you've never recorded a bad episode of this podcast.
Wait, what?
That was irony, but please continue.
I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, you know, if I could just keep it going till 150, I feel like that'll be a nice little personal milestone.
It would be a nice achievement.
Yeah.
What have you? How do you feel it's shaped up? Do you think like you've developed any kind of a structure or like tendencies with it that you did when you were first starting?
I'm definitely trying new things now with the podcast, like which honestly, it's not by much, but it seems to be attracting more interest when I'm like, you know, we'll cover like stuff like 5 things I wish I knew before podcasting, or 5 things I wish I knew before I started producing music, and we would just talk about that shit for like an hour somehow.
I think having a vague direction with it helps, probably.
A vague direction. Yeah. We also did one called The 9 Veils Placed on Every Human Soul.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was based on this essay some dead guy wrote about how, like, society as a whole has, like, multiple layers of veils, illusory veils placed over our perception of reality that kind of, like, blind us to the true nature and, like, you know, how things actually work, of the forces that actually govern our reality and stuff like that, to keep us, you know, like slaves, just working for tomorrow, pretty much.
Yeah. Where does that originate? Just in general, like we talk about how certain things are constructed in one way or another. There's various coded versions of that. By coded, I mean like people of a variety of different political opinions will have that view of like social structure put in, false consciousness, etc. Where is it originating? Is it originating with Sumerian god kings?
Wait,
is it earlier? What?
The 9 veils placed on human souls, you mean?
Yeah, or just not necessarily.
Well,
that's I don't know the essay. I haven't read it.
So you haven't actually, yeah. If it gets a little wacky, you know, like the first, like at first it starts out pretty tame, like the first 3 veils are like, you know, first veil, that, you know, there's you accept that there's, you know, governing bodies that, you know, govern this world, and that you're under. You're basically subservient to. And then the next veil after that is something like, oh yeah, you start caring about like the history of the people, of the institutions that actually govern you, like, you know, how those institutions started. And then after that it gets a little dicey, where eventually by like the 7th one you get into, you realize that aliens and demons and shit have actually been real the whole time. Yeah. It's not just fairy tale shit. And, you know, the stuff of nightmares is actually true. And there are highly evil forces that are embedded amongst, like, the world's global elite that's, like, dictating things. It gets a little wacky, you know.
Those things often do. There's often like, I'm like, okay, I'll have conversations with people which are nice enough, but they have a certain tenor and they're talking about like revealing the real truth, and I'm always thinking, okay, where is this going? Obviously, I'm very tolerant in some senses of the word. So, like, yeah, if a guy starts ranting to me and he starts talking about the bankers, and it's like, yes, I know where this is going, but I'm not actually offended by it. I might disagree with the framework, but, like, I think I know where it's probably going if he's not making an overt, I don't know.
He's going to talk about Jews.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He's eventually...
It's like, okay, I know where this is going. I'm not offended by it. Let's just jump, like...
So, I think, like, you know, looking back, like, I'm definitely less, like, about the anti-Semitic shit nowadays. Because, like, I honestly, they're just another part of the history of everything, you know, like, they were just an institution that happens to be a lot older than others, you know, like.
Yeah, it's very smart population, so like disproportionately bad ideas and good ideas are thought up by Jewish people.
And who's to say they're even going to be around like the way they are forever? You know, like just look at the ancient Egyptians. They were around before the Jews, and look what happened to them. Like now they've been reduced to like, I don't know. From what I hear, it's a pretty shitty country. Like,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, there isn't that. There's genetic changes in the Egyptian population. And yeah, it's not as they're overly dependent on tourism related to their ancient past, while also denouncing it a bunch because, to my very limited knowledge, Egypt has a weird thing of, you know, they like taking pride in ancient Egypt. They like the tourism. They like a bunch of things related to that. But also,
everybody did that. Russia did that. China did that. They all
yeah,
did that.
They have another factor of being Muslims, which means that they want to like denounce the paganism of it, but it's still like a big part of who they are as Egyptians. I forget who. There's a sultan in like the 13th century that wanted to demolish the pyramids because they were pagan
come on,
monuments.
they ain't no fucking Muslims. They're Egyptians, all right. They don't give a fuck about no. Look, I'm sorry if you're Egyptian and you're Muslim. What the fuck, man? Go back to your roots, man.
It makes more sense than Kemetism.
Shit.
I mean, yeah, it feels cool. Probably, I'm sure there's neo-pagan LARPers in Egypt. Probably not. Well, I don't know. They probably actually run an actual risk, unlike most other neo-pagan LARPers. But I don't know. How do you really have Kemetism or whatever we call it after the fact
Alchemy?
without? No, the Egyptian paganism. How do you have that without having a god king? If you don't have a pharaoh, where's the grounding structure?
The lineage.
That's like you have like a totally reformed new version of it.
No, you can't. It's dead for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Also, it's like, you know, apparently they were ruling by some divine insight or some like divine. Yeah, like apparently they weren't like it wasn't just like past like blood that was passed down, but it was also like profound. You could call it abilities, you could call it insight, you could call it some kind of like maybe hidden knowledge, like occult knowledge that they were in possession of and passing down. I mean, it's not the first time shit gets lost throughout history, so I wouldn't even be surprised if there was like some fantastic like bits of sacred knowledge that just got lost, you know?
Oh, I'm sure.
Or purposely obscured.
I'm sure it's also was a very, by definition, very conservative society that for whatever political turmoil existed, they were able to maintain a pretty consistent cultural frame. As in, like, you know, they deliberately were doing things to maintain standardization in their artwork. That flatness to it was partially contrived,
yeah, that's
so
all
it didn't evolve or change.
And that's all the stuff we could kind of explain and logicize using, like, modern frameworks of, like you know, thought. But there's also some mystery there, right? They were also doing some weird shit that we just still can't really explain. Like, why were you doing that, man? Like, doesn't make sense. Or how, more, like
what?
More intriguingly. I don't know, like their insight into like fields of study like astrology. I mean, astronomy, I should say, not astrology. Astronomy.
Well, astronomy, like, it seems all throughout the world you have very complicated astronomy very early on. I can't.
Yeah, because that's all they had. They didn't have, you know, like the internet or.
That's
TV.
my expectation, is that you need to have a autism interest for nerds, and they don't have miniature war game. Well, maybe they did, but you don't have a lot of other things that intelligent people will sink their time into.
You have
and
like
astronomy.
You have oceanic life, but even that, like, only coastal
I mean,
people
you can't really explore. Like fishing, sure, but like
to look at the stars and to gaze upon them and
there's a low entry. Like, literally, I guess it has the lowest entry point because you just wait until it's night in a society without modern lighting and you stare at the sky.
But to actually fully take advantage of it back then, you had to leverage another element of reality, which was time. So, for example, they couldn't. It wasn't enough to just like look at the stars one night and then map out where they were. They also had to see where they were the next night in relation to where they were standing, and the next night, and the next night, and the next night, and the next night, to see like not just like what's up there, but to see like how what's up there shifts in perspective relative to like where they are and the position of where they were standing, and for what reason that was. So it's like, yeah, it was a lot more than just like a static, you know, one night thing. Like, it had to be night after night after night after night. night. That's where higher dimensions of time come into the field of study, where it's like it's patience. It's literally practicing patience. You got to be patient to understand something. You can't understand everything all at once, which is why like that was the mysterious part. Like even ancient people knew back then, like they had to knew to like sit still to be able to fully grasp something, because they'll look at something for one day and one night, like in a new area, and they'll be freaked out. But if they survive and they see it the next night, the next day, and the next night, and the next day, eventually they become more in tune with the cycle, the rhythm, because that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about a pattern, a rhythm.
I'm sure they also had much longer attention spans.
You think so?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, they didn't have other things to do, and they didn't have distraction technology. They didn't have everything. Different people, different thoughts. Well, maybe different people, but look, they didn't have smartphones that they check every 30 seconds. They didn't have all the electronic moving images we had. Much in the same way that my attention span has decreased over my life, and I in part blame, obviously, lack of discipline myself, but I in part blame the amount of like having television, having computers, having smartphones really distracts you and keeps you in a constantly shifting for a new thing.
But you know what? You could say that.
I read way, way less. Barely read anymore. I used to read all the time.
I've been reading a lot more.
That's good. Also, I can. It's a matter of habit. But go on.
But you could also argue that because humans back then didn't have as much distraction technology, they were also a lot more violent. And more prone to expansionary mindsets, like warlord mentality. You
don't even have to go that far back. You see this in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And you had a high youth population and everything else crazy going on. But.
Yes. So, you could say that, I mean, if I were like some greater nefarious cabal of like extraterrestrial species colluding with like the highest echelons of human authority, to control the populace, I'd say it wouldn't just be like some evil need to. I think it's like an actual necessity. I think if 6 billion people weren't sufficiently distracted, they would definitely kill each other.
Yeah,
100%.
You would have more wars. You'd have more violent crime. You still have an aging population.
Like the truth is, there are people out there where if they didn't jack off to like X hamster every single day, they would probably kill somebody.
Yeah, that feels like it tracks general with the general crime decrease. Also, older population. But yeah, I think. Excuse me.
Got the burpees.
Yeah. People are just way more. Well, I don't know. I'm just repeating myself with a very bland statement of being way more distracted. The reason I was mentioning this is that the patience required to do that kind of astronomy was found in a larger portion of the population. Also, recording astronomy is probably the equivalent of updating a Wikipedia article for them.
True. And then technology also comes into the picture where people built like more and more advanced methods of like telescopic vision and perception.
Yeah. No. How many people do you meet that are interested in astronomy?
Not a lot.
Yeah, same. I always felt like I should be interested in it, but I've actually always found it boring.
Not a lot. Yeah, me too. I also did kind of find it generally boring, but maybe there's a conspiracy in that. Maybe if we did bother to look up more often, like as masses, like maybe we would end up seeing a lot weirder shit than we give credit for. Apparently, like. I may not be into astronomy, but I've been going down some UFO rabbit holes. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with just people bothering to look up, and you'll be surprised the shit you will see if you just look up more often. And that's exactly what people like, regardless of whether we call it, like electronic devices or cars or whatever distraction takes any form. The fact is, like, people are just looking looking up less. Like more people are inclined to look down.
UFO sightings are, I'm sure, more common in rural areas. Am I correct in that?
I would think it's more like even if they were more common in heavily urbanized areas, we wouldn't notice because of all the light pollution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just an alien conspiracy to put up street lights so you can't see the UFOs.
I mean, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, look, the thing is, like, I don't think like aliens are constantly visiting from extra places to fuck with us. I think they have visited us. once, twice, maybe dozens of times. I do think that our government probably reverse engineered a lot of their shit, and it's kept very, 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 very secret. And maybe there is an effort to leak some of it. Maybe there's an effort to test it out, and it just ended up getting accidentally exposed. Who knows? But I do think that the government has access to some like freaky deaky non-human technology that's like a lot more advanced than conventional shit.
Why do you feel that?
I don't know. It's well, it's also because like after going down those rabbit holes, it's not any one person to come forward that really got me. It's when you look at like all the different stories, all the different like statements and witness reports, you start finding like the commonalities in all of them, you know, and like all the different footage, and like some of them obviously stick out, some of them are obviously fake, but then like there's some of them where it's like, dude, that's exactly what this other person like kind of captured. That was in a completely different part of the world. They have no idea, you know, they have no connection with each other, and yet they like captured a very, very similar phenomenon. And that's what freaks me out. You know, it's like it's the common threads when you start cross-referencing like different things, different interviews, different whistleblowers reports and shit.
Do you feel like people will get bored of aliens once discovered? Will people be saying like, "Oh man, it sucks the universe is empty except for humans and Gloporians"?
I think yes and no. I think the fact that it's extraterrestrial species, other intelligent life, I think that's going to be more overlooked, and what's going to be more heavily focused upon is the fact that the government's been hiding shit from us and been manipulating us to that extent, where they've been keeping that technology secret and using it against us purposefully and willfully for a very, very, very long time, and probably like taking steps to like really manipulating our whole society, our whole species, our whole civilization, maybe for thousands of years. We don't know. This could go back for a very, very, very long time, since before America, since before Christ, since before like a lot of shit. You know, if we're talking about advanced species that could potentially, you know, like out age us by millions of years, like that's pretty crazy. You know, hundreds of millions of years.
I guess the ability to maintain a cover-up. There's a bunch of things you can. You can like underplay it,
especially if
you
you've
can
had
drown
a long,
it in
long time
in chaff, informational chaff.
You know, there's these theories that in secret we have actually facilitated like entire planets just like Earth. Or perhaps we are just another planet, you know, that's been facilitated. But there are other planets out there in different stars that are reachable to certain forces within our world, and they could go out there. And if they just take up like a preliminary observation from their advanced crafts, there's reports that these people wear conventional clothing, they speak English, they drive cars. So it's like you know, it's wacky and out there. But imagine if that were true, that the whole time they've been like. There's like different like engineered planets just like Earth harvesting like basically
Cum.
What?
They've been harvesting cum. Please continue.
Oh no, they've been engineering humans and growing them and raising them like cattle on specific planets like this all across the galaxies, and they've been harvesting us for cum and our souls, you know, like our cum and souls.
Yeah, or organic energy.
Or adrenochrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is where it gets really nefarious and crazy. You know,
I feel like a long-running conspiracy over the centuries would be harder to conceal.
What about over millennia?
Same millennia, same thing.
Okay, so then there's another thing.
Or even complex secret societies. I mean, secret societies did exist throughout history.
Maybe these
and
things
they're big drivers.
Maybe these things work in a cycle. You know, like a lot of like Hindu mythology kind of refer to the cycle of human, you know, existence, where maybe this happened before. Maybe this happens over and over again. Maybe at one point humanity was very advanced, you know, much like ours, and they got to a point where they wiped themselves out and they started all over again. And maybe that's what we're going to do. Maybe we're just going to get so advanced where we start uncovering the system of control. And they said, all right, jig is up, guys. Let's press the little red button and reset this whole thing. And they press the little red button and we go into World War III and we kill ourselves, wipe ourselves out. And the only ones remaining start the new, you know, Promethean creation cycle.
Like Oppenheimer's concerns about a nuclear device having been detonated before.
You heard about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
I didn't watch the movie yet, but I heard it's not included with
All right,
his shame.
so,
It would have
like,
been nice if it had like
you know
a
that
vision
quote?
of him walking through an Atlantean civilization.
yeah, you know the origin of that quote. Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, it's from is it from the Mahabharata?
Yeah. So that when you look at when you also look at like the events from that kind of from their mythology, like you the depictions they have, and they talk about, they literally depict like floating fortresses that had such destructive power, and if you listen to the descriptions of it, they're literally talking about like nuclear weaponry, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what he was getting at, and yeah, maybe that's the case. You know, maybe there was cycles of ancient civilizations, and we're now reaching this next breaking point, and it's either make or break. It's either we fuck up and we end up destroying ourselves, or we manage to actually get it right this time around. And instead of choosing denser states of matter and like materialist sensibility and ideology and systems of control, we look more towards, you know, connectedness, oneness. You know, we look inward for completeness, not outward. And that's what, like, I guess Ascension is about. And I think that's we discussed this in the car. I was like, yeah, I feel the world is splitting into two different places where like one is like denser and more like about like material concerns, and you know the other side of humanity is more all about like connectedness, oneness, and you know like enlightened sensibility. And I do feel that. I do feel certain people are kind of like tilting one way and certain people tilting the other. And I don't think one side is necessarily worse. And the way I see it, it always goes back to Hermetic principle. You know, there's as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yes.
It's the idea that, you know, the micro essentially reflects the macro, and the macro reflects the micro, respectively.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine just one half of humanity splitting off as ethereal beings, while the other half just become more and more
Drug-like.
yeah, more and more like the humans in Wall-E.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely meant to be an
A
ethereal
bunch of
being.
people jerking off to VR porn and watching influencers.
While the other ones are just like meditating themselves into mummification in caves
Yeah.
and shit. Like, yo, I mean, seriously, like, yeah, you know, I could see that. And in a sense, that would be like the world ending, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this forgive me if this is boring or material.
Oh no, you don't have to say that. Say it like that.
Imagine we discover evidence of like a civilization a bit older, but not that significantly different. Imagining something pre-Sumer, like a Stone Age civilization with big cities and colonies and stuff.
Like Flintstones.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's an older empire, but it's that fell pre-writing perhaps.
But they had shit. They were advanced. Just certain things weren't as advanced. Yeah.
Would it significantly change things? Would people even notice or update their priors? Or
Yeah. This is a pretty interesting little.
like, it wouldn't be significant. It wouldn't change your life in the modern day. It would show a boom-bust cycle in human history. An earlier collapse, one that perhaps took longer to recover from. But it's not an Atlantis with flying cities and nuclear weapons. It's just a pretty complicated Stone Age society.
Like Dwarven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mining would be a heavy.
It'd be fun for history kids or nerds. Well, might have limitations for being so far back. Not enough.
I think they would also have their own twisted caste system. They'll be like rich ass people, and they'll be poor people.
Yeah, hierarchies
Like
are
mud
pretty.
people.
Hierarchies are pretty innate to human nature.
I agree. There has to be order, and
I feel like it would be the kind of thing I would talk about a lot, and other people would be bored or it doesn't have like an actual real. I could go around saying, "Oh, this is so zeitgeist changing," and everyone's like, "Okay, cool. There's an earlier Stone Age sailing civilization."
I mean, you know what? Again, like if you believe in like magic, maybe these people had access to like some kind of. I mean, it's not.
I'm making this a way more boring statement of like, yeah, it's really complex for what they got, but yeah, okay.
Okay, let's try to define the success of a civilization.
Okay.
How would you define? Okay, so the way I would go about it is if I want to define the success of a civilization, I would try to look at the success of any given individual of that civilization. Now, what would be the success of an individual? Are they happy? Are they healthy? Do they have shelter? Do they have access to meaningful community? You know, are their basic needs being met? Are they being intellectually and physically stimulated? You know, all these things, all these factors that add up to what makes. But, you know, eventually you get to a point where you exhaust that list and it's like there's not much left. Humans are pretty simple creatures to satisfy, you know, if you look at our base material needs, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, you know, the material aspects of a Stone Age society doesn't seem that far-fetched, even if it's like, call it advanced or simple, but it gets complicated when you come up with the problems of like nihilism. If there's an advanced society and the intellectual fabric that comes with that, you would assume that they'd also come into similar problems of any intellectual being. They start questioning their meaning, their place in the world, especially if we're talking about a hierarchical system where some people born of a lower caste will start asking. They'll be like, why was I born like poor?
No, I feel like it's more like usually like. Look, the Buddha was a prince.
Yeah.
He basically had the free time to pursue these things intellectually, spiritually.
Yes.
When you meet people who are just working day-to-day stiffs, they're usually not too philosophically inclined.
Yeah, because they're worried about their next meal.
Or even if it's satisfied, usually they're just like, yeah, whatever. They're just
still working for their next meal. Yeah.
Yeah, for much of human history, yes. But still, civilization, I think, by nature provides more of that. You know, like the stability of having farming and having consistent, even a famine strike.
Yeah. How do you feel about the reptilians theory?
Like what? There's a subterranean reptilian species
that's infiltrated like our global elites.
That's just the show V from the 80s and David Icke stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Wouldn't make a big difference for me.
Yeah, I guess
also,
not.
I'm not inclined to believe just because I don't have any real evidence of it. I tend to go for simpler explanations.
Come closer.
Sorry. Thank you. I was drifting away.
No, it's because all people on wheels do that. They always drift away.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, by the way, on a personal note, are you stoked about your new place?
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
I
know. I just want to get in at this point. It is such a strenuous ordeal to get this place.
Hells yeah.
So
good luck, man.
Thanks.
Do you have like the funds to cover the rent until?
Yes.
Cool.
Hey, I should have said no, and you could have like started a Patreon or a Kickstarter to support opening the house.
Well, there's ways to make money, you know, for
Yeah.
sure. But damn, I would prefer it if he didn't get any roommates. You know what? I would be so inclined to live there myself. You could just be like, fuck getting a roommate. We'll just split the rent 50-50, you know?
Well, 5 bedrooms, $3,500K.
1,500? Yeah, that's a sick deal.
No, 3,500.
Yeah, if you split that with one other person,
Yeah, true.
it's a sick deal.
It's a sick deal splitting it with like 5 people where it becomes 700.
No, that's when I think one other person is too much.
Yeah.
I mean, after one other person is too much. I think that's the kind of place where if you split it with one other person, it's a very, very, very good deal.
I think it's,
Because like a 1-bedroom would be like 1,200. You know,
Yeah.
to have access to that much space, you know, like that's like a solid, very good.
haven't signed the lease, haven't gotten the keys yet. It's finally being approved after a very long wait.
Yeah.
Lease is absurd, has a bunch of New York State housing court law violations written into it that wouldn't stand up in court.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
But it's not a rent controlled apartment though, right?
No.
So they could hit you. They could hit you over the head with some.
They
dump.
intend on They said at least that they intend on demolishing it within a few years.
Nah, they ain't gonna do that anytime soon. The logistics of that is gonna be such a nightmare compared to just like renting it out to people like you.
Yeah. if they put a small amount of money into this place, they would be able to charge much more.
They're only telling you that just to make sure at any given moment they can tell you to get the fuck out.
Yeah, that is definitely the point of it. Yeah, which goes along with like they are going to demolish it.
Or whatever the case may be. But like I just know that they're just looking for someone to pay the expense of that place. Do you know how to do it? Do you know how to?
I do. I know how to do it.
All right, go for it.
Oops, I shouldn't be doing. Yeah, I shouldn't try holding the mic at the same time.
Yeah, I could. My favorite thing is opening bottles with another bottle.
Yeah, I've never bothered doing that, though. I probably could figure it out well enough.
Yeah.
I'd worry about slipping.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple ordeal. So did you see the Barbie movie?
I haven't seen it. I have barely watched anything this year. I didn't even watch Fast 10. I was looking forward to seeing Fast 10.
I made a stupid ass joke. I was like, the fact that there was a hooker Barbie proves that Greta Gerwig is a swerf.
Nice. I know there's a trans Barbie and all that.
There is?
I believe from what I've read online.
No, I mean, good for her, man. Like, good on Greta. Show some backbone, in a society where no one has any. And of course, no one's gonna question a trans Barbie. They would be like, of course, there's a trans Barbie.
More significant. Well, there's been a lot of Barbie discourse.
There shouldn't be any Barbie discourse, to be honest. There's nothing to fucking argue about. They're plastic fucking dolls that you dress up, you make their hair pretty, and there's not much to it. Like, it's all it is.
Well, the discourse, I mean, around making a movie about a literal toy. It feels like a 90s joke.
But didn't they do that before?
Yes. The meta commentary on it being a toy, commenting on it having political relevance as part of its marketing.
I mean, what do they think Ready Player One is? Like, that's literally the same shit. It's just a different kind of toy.
This sounds more intellectually engaging, but I haven't seen it yet.
Ready Player One?
Either. I will say there's a lot of talk about Barbie and Oppenheimer making a ton of money while a bunch of superhero films have failed. Well, The Flash was a huge failure.
And you know what's fucked up? These are actually still good movies, like, from what I hear. The only thing is, like, people are fucking tired of cape shit. They're fucking tired of this ongoing dead horse that just keeps
I hate them. I seen many of them. I hate the way they're shot. I find the action very boring. I still find it engaging enough to watch. But
well, the biggest problem now with those movies is how much fucking green screen they use. Like, it's so prevalent and so pervasive. It's like really, it's distasteful at this point.
It's also part of what allows it to be directed by a producer. They cost so much because they have a ton of reshoots and like focus group testing on them. It'd be very good if it mostly fails as a filmmaking technique. I don't know if anything will really take over from it. Maybe you'll have a bunch of other meta commentary toy things from Mattel.
And it fucking makes sense because, think about it. Like, if they keep making the way they're doing their movies, like, at first, like, when it hit, but after abusing the CGI settings and all that shit, the CGI sets and all that computer generated shit, all it's going to take is for people who would be used to watching those eventually slightly deviate and watch older movies for once, and then they'll see movies actually filmed like on sets, on real sets, or like at the actual cities, and it can't be ignored. Like, you just look at the quality and it's like so vastly different. You see Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, and you're like so engaged because, motherfucker, that's Queens.
Yeah, even disposable product from like the 90s, definitely the 80s and before, now feel like art films because they're actually shot on real film.
Yes.
With real sets.
Meanwhile, back then, that was a budget decision. It's like, yeah, let's go film this in actual New York City. We'll save a ton of money.
It was just an actual physical, like, requirement. I think also you have real cinematographers. There's a lot of artistry that's lost in this.
You're right. You're right. There's a lot of people that
There's a lot of competent people that were just good at shooting a camera and made shooting on a low budget look good. Now on a huge budget, everything is very contrived, like these certain broad shots. Everything is on a flat background. You'll notice how in superhero fights you don't have a lot of environmental moving. It's always either like plain backgrounds,
static shots.
Yeah. Watch by
but
comparison.
the fight scenes usually are supposed to make up for it, like the choreographed.
Those aren't though. Like the action sequences are like energy rays, and the sets they're on are very flat. It's like Captain America 3: Civil War having a big confrontation in a airport. Just like an empty airport, and it's like what a bland location. Compare that.
Right. It's like a fighting game background.
Compare that. It's worse than that. With like Rumble in the Bronx.
You're right.
Jackie Chan, like
dynamic, interactive.
He's jumping around the supermarket, knocking over shit. He's actually physically interacting with things. I find it far more visually engaging, and certainly having far great actual artistry.
You know what? Okay, so you're right. One of the this is a very specific problem that I could point to with the Marvel movies. There is really not enough meaningful interaction with their environments. It's always very gimmicky. But
there's a lot of energy rays. You ever notice how comic books have a lot of really schizo superpowers, and these movies really tone it down? And certain things like Captain America. Reed Richards. Stretching abilities. It just looks so terrible in movies, in like the format of live action. So you don't have that wacky power set. In general, after all this time, Cape Shit is very embarrassed of comic books.
I'm thinking even something scaled back as like, you look at. I mean, some Marvel movies do tap into this like sense of realism and shit. But like movies like Top Gun, where they're just like shooting pool at a bar. Those are like simple acts that every human can connect with. On a certain, well, at least an American. If you're worth your fucking salt. But anyway, like simple things like that. And there have been moments in Marvel movies of genuine like shit. Like I hate seeing like in movies where people are playing video games because they never get it right. They never, ever get it right.
It's not very interesting to show.
You're right. Unless the movie is specifically about playing the video game,
Even then, it's still hard to make it exciting. You have a lot of period pieces because in a period piece, you don't have a smartphone, so a lot more dramatic tension can be drawn from that.
Yeah, why do you think so many things now take place in like the 80s as a fad? Because they could skirt around the smartphone issue. Because it makes a lot of movies uninteresting.
I mean, if you just have scenes of people hanging out on their smartphones like we do all the time.
Yep.
It's not dramatic. It's not interesting.
Yep.
It's difficult to implement. When you have movies or shows, visual media that does like text popping up on screen as characters are texting each other, it's not great storytelling.
No, it's not.
It's not. It looks ugly. It looks absurd. It makes dramatic stakes less interesting.
Yeah, it does. But it's also fucked up because that's real life. Like that is exactly what real life is like: dramatic, absurd, and uninteresting.
Yeah, it's very inward focusing. This connects with people not looking to the stars. They're looking on their dang cell phones.
Yeah, pretty much. That is what it loops back to eventually. Well, this is why, like, I like to make music and do stuff like martial arts, because like that, those are still facets of human living where I don't, look down at my phone and shit.
Yeah.
Where I'm actually engaged in something. And thanks to like martial arts, I guess, like I could take that mentality and whatever. So it's like, I guess it's really just perspective. If you have the right perspective, then you could figure out how to like truly engage with something, which is always nice. Yo, you should do karate, man.
I know you've suggested before to get more in tune with my body.
Yeah, you should. Mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, some martial art would be good for me.
It could be something as basic as boxing. I think boxing is fucked up and like brutal. I'm actually hesitant now to recommend, because what if someone does do boxing and they end up like concussing a guy and killing him? It's that easy.
Yeah. I've heard it's good for your health. And you should be avoiding fights anyway.
Of course. Of course.
Um, yeah, karate. A lot of guys are into
Jiu-jitsu.
Brazilian
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu. Karate would be a nice,
It's
not
the-
too esoteric alternative take.
It's also, you could go
It'd
as
be a
hard as
contrarian take to start learning karate when everyone's learning
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's because all the men like to
and
have
Muay Thai
all the men like getting their repressed sexuality out by like rolling around and choking each other out.
and grappling's very effective.
Yeah, but the problem with grappling is what if that guy has one friend? Then you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked. You know?
Yeah.
Like, whereas karate, you could knock out one guy after the other. Like it is possible. Whereas if you're just grappling one guy, so
Boxing allows that too.
I think if you do striking arts and karate, jiu-jitsu supplemented would not hurt. I think that's what mixed martial arts is. It's basically
Yeah.
striking arts like kickboxing or karate mixed with like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or some shit, and then you become like a truly all-rounded fighter, and then you could pretty much dominate any physical altercation. Unless you meet a guy who's better than you at those things, in which case there always is somewhere out there.
Yeah.
That's why martial arts is so exciting. It's dynamic. It's always changing. You know, the top dog one day could become like bottom bitch the next day. You know.
Yeah. Probably on physical health level. Obviously, on physical health level, it's good or effective. What are we looking at?
What? The time.
Oh,
No, we got time. Just checking. No, what were you saying about health? Yeah, it is good for your fucking health. 100%. Do some
Yeah.
karate, man. How old are you?
33.
Okay. Also, an alternative to karate, because karate is like very, very, very physically demanding.
Yeah.
What is less demanding but just as deep and rewarding is kung fu. Kung fu is like a treasure trove of principles, not just like principles for kicking people's asses. I mean, it could show you how to kick people's asses if you practice diligently enough, but like the benefits it gives you from consistent practice, like physically, not just in your physical being, but also in like your I don't want to say moral, more like your I don't know. It just makes you a better person. You know, when you pursue like an Eastern deep martial art like that, that's like that deep, and it has such a rich history. We're going back like what fucking 4,000 years or so. Like that's pretty cool. And there's a lot to like gain out of like maintaining that kind of practice and study. I don't know. I think you would enjoy it.
Appreciate the suggestion. I was thinking have to pick up some kind of geriatric martial art.
That's what kung fu like. Kung fu. The reason why I like kung fu, like especially like something like Wing Chun, you know, that Ip Man did.
Yeah.
I like that one because it's you could be like 18 or 80. It doesn't matter. Like it still teaches. It's good for your body. It's not. It does test you, but it's not going to like break you. It's designed for everybody to use as it's the most practical art, and you get better through good physical conditioning, but it's proper mindset. You know, you have to be able to like, you have to be able to be brave when to be brave, and to be cautious when to be cautious at just the right time when the enemy doesn't expect you to be.
Yeah, it feels more productive overall because I just want to avoid any physical confrontation.
Exactly. It's the kind of thing where it's like some guy will like be like, hey, what the fuck? And then he pushes you, and before anyone even notices, you just like swat his hands out, flick him in the fucking throat, and he's like, ow. And then you just be like, take it easy, guy. And then he just walk away, and then he's like, what the fuck just happened? You know, like, that's, you know, it's shit like that. It's cool.
Yeah. I think I'd go for karate.
Go karate?
Yeah, and you said that it actually is practical. Not that I'm intending on fighting ever, but purely something that feels better physically.
All
if it
right,
was.
so karate is like its own can of worms because there's so many different branches. There's
Yeah.
different kinds of karate, right? There's like, for example, they'll call it mainland karate, where you go there and you like do very like rhythmic strikes and shit like that, straightforward, and it's about like a lot of it's like trying to score and win competition. And then there's forms of karate from like Okinawa, you know, the isolated island that wasn't.
Yeah, I know
always
what
part of-
Okinawa is.
Yeah, so
I know that's where karate originates.
Yeah, actually, but that's why their karate, Okinawan karate, is different. It's more brutal. It's more practical. It's more. It's like it's not really about like how do I strike him? It's just hard enough to be able to like get that point. It's more like here's how you fucking do the most brutal sense of damage to the human body. You know, like until you could like literally break. You know why? It's like these are people who were like colonized and invaded by like well-armed warriors throughout their history. And these were just farmers and peasants, so they had no weapons. So all they had was their fucking fists, and all they had was their farming equipment. And that's why they had to develop their karate to be able to fight against like armored fucking. That's why like if you look at like Okinawan karate guys, like they're all about like trying to punch through stone and trying to like punch a tree down or trying to like kill a bull with one punch, because in their mentality, in their philosophy, they're like, if I'm going up against an armored samurai, I have to be able to like punch through their fucking chest. That's like literally the mentality they have.
How effective were they at that?
I mean, a lot of times they died, but like they lasted, didn't they? Like
Yeah.
they're still a fucking their own thing. They're still an Okinawan people, and their Okinawan karate is still around today. So it had to be at least somewhat effective, right?
Oh, they were successfully colonized, but yeah,
I mean, at the same time, it's like maybe
seems
they
like a
weren't-
desperate measure against Japanese imperialism.
Yeah, you're right. But it did get so popular that even the Japanese imperialists themselves adopted it. For
I'm sure it's
themselves.
effective. Not punching through armor, but it's probably
No, like-
it's an actually
it's like-
effective martial art.
It's like you would see like that would like I don't know, they would
Aren't
have
all
like,
Japanese police trained in karate, like Okinawan karate?
I don't know. I think from what I understand, with most modern Japanese troops, they get cops. They either have to pursue kendo or judo.
Ah, okay. Nice choices.
Yeah.
Do you think they were using kendo techniques to wield their batons?
100%.
Yeah, same.
100%.
It'd
That's
be
where it
cool
comes
if they
from.
just outright had Boken.
Yeah, those Boken had to become its own martial art. Like at first, Boken were used to simulate a sword, but eventually people figured out like we have to make this into an actual martial art in itself. Like
Yeah.
because it was a way to like subdue guys with swords. If you didn't have a sword and you weren't trying to kill him, yeah, you could use a Boken. You might kill him, but it'll be there's a hell of a lot more
Yeah.
of a chance he'll survive like than if you're using a sword against him. And yeah, Boken were really effective against swords because, like, first of all, you didn't have to worry about damaging your blade, so you could block
Yeah.
it however the way you want. And if you catch it, even better, you're at an advantage. Like, if you know what you're doing. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of other wacky weapons they used. They used like a two-pronged fork. I think it's a very ballsy weapon, but it's like one metal rod with like another like little thing sticking out. So they literally caught swords by like just shoving it up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a ballsy ass weapon to use against like a guy who's trained to swing a full katana at you and shit.
It is.
What?
Sorry.
What?
No, just checking on my phone charging.
Yeah. So you want to do karate? You want to be a karate
Yeah.
kid? Yeah.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Where you going?
I want to plug my phone in.
No. Come
Oh,
on.
fuck. Okay,
We only
almost done? I'm sorry, rude of me.
Yeah, we only have like 15 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And your phone's still charging, right?
No.
No, it's negative now.
Yeah. It's all right.
Did it get less?
Yes.
How much less?
Like 2%.
So where's it at now?
10.
10%?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, you'll be fine.
No, it's fine. I wanted to start charging, but that's fine.
How do you feel about the new foldable Androids?
Seems dumb and pointless.
I have a foldable Android. What are you trying? No, I'm kidding. It's like
No, I know you do. I like Androids. I'm sad that iPhones are winning. Women hate Androids.
wait, what do you mean iPhones are winning?
Just in market share.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure, yes, iPhone has like a huge part of the smartphone market share.
Really?
Yes. Androids are very small.
Interesting. I thought more people had Androids.
I think it's like it's decreasing
Interesting.
more and more. Like iPhone's winning the cell phone war.
I don't know. Samsung. Something about Androids, you could just always do more with. That's just
Yeah.
Unless you want to join the cult of Apple. Unless you want to get a MacBook and an iPhone and an Apple Watch and
I
an
think
Apple
a lot of
TV.
people, particularly women, also there's just so many apps only being updated for Apple. People's group chats, they're fixated on not having one Android person in it.
Oh, so it's more like social engineering. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but technologically, I still think Android one-ups.
Oh, it does. I
Yeah.
agree 100%. I
Yeah.
vastly prefer Android. I love having an audio jack.
Yeah.
I tell that to women. I love having an audio jack, and they don't know why I have a jacked audio.
Because they use AirPods.
Exactly. And I said, no, I need a jacked headphone to jack off with.
First of all, jacked headphones. I'm a DJ, so I'll always prefer like wired headphones.
Of course.
And a producer because first of all, like you you only have so many options, and you just don't want any of that latency at all. You don't want anything to get between you and your direct connection with your music. Yeah, 100%. I'm sure audiophiles feel the same way. Like, they just...
I hate wireless headphones.
I'm sure they're getting better, but I'm just I'm too old school.
Yeah, same.
Until you could find me like a wireless headphone that you don't have to recharge ever.
Yeah.
Then I'll be satisfied.
Wireless charging.
Yeah, wirelessly charged wireless headphones. Actually, I'm sure those exist now. I think you could just put the AirPods like on the wireless charging dock.
I don't know. I don't care for it. And if you lose them, I don't like wireless. Certainly not the AirPods, even though I understand their practicality in some respects.
How would you feel about like a neural implant that could directly transmit?
No, why?
So you don't need headphones ever again. You can just directly transmit the music.
No, it seems way more reasonable just to have a speaker system.
What if with that neural implant, not only can you hear music without headphones, but you could also download direct like information directly.
Imagine guys just walking around in their VR headset as they're interacting throughout the day. To what little they do is just constantly playing porn, and they have an auto masturbator that's just jerking them off all the time in real life. They're just perpetually edging, they're just perpetually ejaculating, and then ejaculating again.
And then they have reminders to hydrate so they don't ejaculate too much.
Yeah, imagine that cyberpunk food. He's just walking around with a huge, loud fleshlight constantly pumping his crotch.
Yeah.
And out of our tolerant society, it just becomes like, why do you care if he's using an auto masturbator all the time?
Why does it bother you? What are you, gay? Why are you even paying attention to
how is this affecting your life? Why don't you just live and let live? And when you're just talking to this guy, he wouldn't talk to you is the thing. People would just stay in. But just guy going about his day, like buying things from the grocery store. And on his VR glasses, he's just playing hardcore hentai.
Ugh.
Just like one panel of his vision. Wow. But of course, this is absurd because people don't interact with each other as much in real life.
No, they don't.
Or face-to-face with delivery services.
No. So that's another reason why I like this podcast. Because, like, first of all, I have a pretty solitary, busy schedule. I mean, busy, it's solitary in a sense. Like, I do the martial arts thing, like, basically 3 days a week. I also do music. There's also this podcast. And this podcast is important because it's the one time I specifically afford dedicated to spend face-to-face time with another person, you know?
Yeah, you should get out more.
I do get out, though. Like, the thing is, like, basically what I'm trying to say is I have very little me time. And podcasting is me time.
Fair. I see.
It's my me time. Like, otherwise, there's always socializing, doing shit. This is my, like, just me time, in a sense. So it's like, and I get to share that me time with, like, a person or two at a time, which is very good. I think that's very stimulating, very reflective for me, for the other person even, This is almost like a kind of, like, horizontal therapy as opposed to a vertical one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very homoerotic.
I mean,
a horizontal therapy.
Usually, all right, the point of therapy is, like, a lot of it is to kind of unrepress things that are repressed and then integrate it seamlessly into your actual conscious existence. So if you have a lot of homoerotic thoughts repressed, then you're going to have to integrate that, in a healthy way.
No, I'm just constantly making gay jokes, so I guess it's pretty upfront.
Gay jokes. What are the cum boys up to these days?
It's the Adam Friedland show. They're affecting pop culture on a much broader level.
That's awesome. They deserve it.
The Taylor Swift Ice Spice collaboration was probably due to Adam Friedland.
Really?
Because Matty Healy of the 1975.
Yeah, I remember that whole fiasco.
Yeah.
And he dated Taylor Swift.
Right.
Oh, that's so funny.
And he was on Cumtown, And he wasn't even criticizing Ice Spice. It was just Nick Mullen calling her an Inuit Spice Girl. Led to a bunch of heartbroken fans of Taylor Swift, of Ice Spice, of Matty Healy being outraged at his awful behavior.
Oh my God, an Inuit Spice Girl.
And then calling her a chubby Chinese woman, and then making racist caricatures of Eskimos, which is also a slur, supposedly.
Oh my God.
And Chinese accents.
God damn.
But I don't know, me it didn't, but I would like to think that it led to Taylor Swift and Ice Spice having a collaboration.
Yeah. Well, I don't expect this.
But that's the news that the Come Town is doing great under its new rebranding as the Adam Friedland Show.
Good. I mean, it'll be funny, like 30 years from now, when they're like old and successful and on primetime television, they'll be looking at their history. They had a podcast called Come Town.
Well, let's build right into it from the very beginning, and they talk about it a lot.
Yeah. They sure
What a
do.
great name. It's one of the best names possible.
Yeah, I don't expect this podcast to like get anywhere, but what I would like to do is I'd like my music to get somewhere, and then that by default makes the pod. Because if people are interested in my music, then they would be interested in me as like a person by then, and then they would be like, oh, he has a podcast. Then I could hear what he's like, and they could listen to the podcast and be like, wow, he sounds terrible, and they just don't want anything to do with me ever again. And it's like a perfect conclusion to that journey. The marketing funnel. Like, that's my funnel.
Yeah, so this is designed to bolster your music career.
No.
All of your Terrorisk fans, all 30 of them will...
No, it's like 46.
Nice. Will support your DJ.
No.
Career.
What I really liked about this podcast is it really taught me. I always say this, but it's always true. It taught me how to edit video. It taught me how to like really
makes sense.
like, you know, the process of like editing. You know, because I already know how to do the audio part. That's, you know, that I could do in my sleep. So to be able to also like get into the video aspect, like how cuts work and shit, which make perfect sense to me. It's like just basically transitions. And yeah, I've had a blast learning about it, and I keep learning new stuff, which is nice. And I apply that to music, you know, like that's how I make those stupid music video thingies, which have been like also really fun to do. You know, I plan to do more of those. So yeah, it's all like interrelated. It supports each other. It is, you know?
Yeah, it seems like it's been a very good project for you to embark upon.
Yeah, and I think it benefits my friends too, you know, to give them a chance to like get on the mic and just say their fucking bullshit piece, you know, like whatever. Everyone needs that. Everyone
brings it back to therapy again, that it has a therapeutic effect.
It's cathartic. It really is cathartic. Everyone needs at least some place to just be able to vent in public. And it's up to people if they could take it or leave it. It's not as invasive as being out in Times Square and screaming in people's faces. No, this is a lot more passive, you know, and eventually maybe I'll strike a chord, and, you know, maybe it'll get to a point where they're like, you know what, he is kind of onto something. I don't expect that to happen, but it probably will if I keep this going long enough. And I think I'm on a positive path. So if I stay on a positive path, then what other conclusion is there? Like, I think I'm on the right path. Basically, I'm trusting.
You seem like you're doing really well. I'm very happy to see it.
Why? Because I'm not sleeping on the fucking floor anymore. Like,
no, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I just you seem like you're in better straits mentally.
Oh, hell's yeah!
A lot less depressed. A lot less self-destructive. You're taking things slower with substances.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, actually, you know what? I didn't even notice. Yeah, I haven't taken. I've just been too busy.
You've been too busy to get wasted.
Yes.
There's times when I was worried about you regarding that.
No, but what you don't understand about me was before that, even since I was like 14, 15, 16, 17, I was doing way worse shit. If you think that was bad, you should have seen me.
Oh, I'm sure. Like, I don't doubt it.
Yo, dude, I was really, really... To me, like, what you witnessed, all that shit, that was child's play.
Oh,
like,
sure.
That's literally nothing. You know, like, I used to have friends, like, step in front of trains on me. Oh, man, that sent me on a spiral. I used to get into smoking PCP. I used to do all sorts of fucked up shit, man. Like...
Yeah.
This is just light work. This is,
light levels of drinking, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. substance abuse was just a part of the journey. It wasn't the whole point of the journey for me. It was definitely a part of it, though. I understood that much.
Yeah.
Also, because I really had to tap into the psychedelic experience, and I had to go through my gateway drugs. You know, there's the beer, the weed. It's like, hey, you want to drop some acid? Yeah, sure. And then you're like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah. What's our time at?
I don't know. Let's see. I think we're at,
This is scintillating content, I know.
what is?
Us asking what the time's at.
I don't know. Dude, I fucking love this podcast. I might as well admit it. Even if there's only 46 people subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's still, I think if I keep working diligently on my music and, like, keep releasing it the way I do,
Yeah.
I think there's some good shit that I've been coming out with. And now that I'm getting more into the techno stuff, I'm starting to figure out, like, the appeal. And I'm starting to get into it. So I think that's going to make, like, making it a lot easier for me. And you said you like techno, right?
I'm not usually not too bothered by it. It's not something I listen on
What
my
about
own.
the crowd techno usually brings? How do you feel about them?
Not a big fan.
No? What about them don't you like?
I don't like any of these club scenes. It's nothing against them, but I just feel not even bored, just a total outsider at all of these events.
Okay.
And it's like I'm not bothered by the music, but it's like, no, I don't feel like getting up
Would
and
you
dancing.
say you're not really like a nightlife person? Like
I am a nightlife person,
Oh,
just
really?
not for this. I stay out until 4 a.m. plenty of times.
So what kind of nightlife do you prefer? Like quiet?
Yeah, usually just... It would be cool if there was like 24-hour cafes you could just hang out in. But no, it's usually just ending up at someone's apartment, no homo, no sexo, and just hanging out in the living room.
Well, that sounds about right. That's just as much of a valid experience of where you spend the evening as anything else, you know?
But yeah, techno is like, okay, this is fine in a movie for a few minutes. I'm not like interested in the concert, but...
You know what? I feel you, though. You know what I want? I've always
What's that?
wanted to, like, own my own club.
Yeah, what would it be?
Like a multi-story club,
Mm.
you know, where there would be different floors, different levels, and there would be a VIP section, and then my office, where like only my closest friends come and party with me, specifically the owner of the club. The celebrities would come in there and shit. I want to meet the owner of the venue, the legendary venue. Wouldn't that be so clutch? Wouldn't you visit me all the time and be like, I'm going to go hang out with Chris, the owner
Yeah, I
of,
would.
of the club. I'm going to go hang out in his private office where we like smoke cigars and fucking drink like Blue Label scotch. Because, dude, that would be my dream. I would love that. That would be so sick. If I had like millions of dollars, that's exactly where I would sink all my focus. I would focus it all in trying to start like a very nice club venue, you know, a
Yeah.
multi-story club venue. A bar on each floor, you know, like
Yes.
that'd be so nice. Because like for me, then I wouldn't have to worry about being the star, being the whatever. I get to just be the one with the house, you know. I would have the house, and I wouldn't care if I like have to work there like, you know, 20 hours out of the day. I would be okay with that. I would have a bed there. I would sleep there if I had to.
Yeah. How many views do you normally get?
For what?
Terrorisk.
Depends on the episode.
Yeah?
Yeah. Some episodes, like, you know, the 9 Vills on Every Human Soul got, like, a lot more views than, like, some of the other bullshit ones. It depends on, like, who you share it to. You know, if
Right.
you shared it on your Twitter, I'm sure it would get a lot of views.
I don't know how many people will watch all the way through or even part of it.
What?
I don't know how many people would watch it, even part of it.
No, I mean, look, it only takes about, like, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even 2 minutes of viewing for it to count as a view. So that's all that counts.
Hmm.
And also, it's, like, it's also consistency. You know, as long as you just,
Yeah.
like, keep posting and you're not, like... You're not directly bothering anyone by posting. You're not talking shit about anyone specifically or like bullying anyone. So, you know,
Yeah.
just keep talking your shit and you'll be fine. You also got to have fun. It's also important to have fun while doing it because,
It's very true for life in general.
well, yeah, I have fun doing this podcast all the time. That's why I set
Yeah.
this up the way I do with the fucking funky lighting
Yeah.
and the beers and the weeds. That's what I do. You know, we have a nice time. That's kind of why I want to like set this place up better. You know, like I want to be able to facilitate.
Turn into a real swinging bachelor pad.
Yeah, it is turning into a swinging bachelor pad. I want to get a neon sign, at least one, right? I should have one.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I was thinking of doing? Like, once I get a bed, I'm gonna turn this into the regular couch, and I'm gonna have a Terrorisk sign, like neon sign, custom made, and then I'm gonna hang it up there, and then I'm gonna have this set up where it's like where it could point, the camera could point at us like sitting on the couch talking.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, and we could just watch TV too while we talk. You know, it would be pretty clutch.
Yeah. So have you just been going from one task to another? What else has been going on in your life?
What do you mean one task to another?
Not task, these projects you have and then work.
All right. Well, my most recent completed project was the fucking, if you call it a project, was the gold medal. You know, I had to like.
Congratulations once again.
I worked very, very hard for that. So like, I'm still. It was only last month, okay? So I'm still riding the whole fucking victory on that. I'm like, that was a very, very.
Did you get any sword bunny groupies from your victory?
No. I didn't advertise my victory like to that extent, but lately in the dojo, I have seen some expectations on me where it's like, oh yeah, you won first place in that Gekken tournament, so that means you have to go. I've noticed like new students come in, you know, who were either at the tournament, who heard about what happened, and they want to like train, because it wasn't just me that won. You know, other members of our school also took gold medals from that same tournament in different divisions. So like, you know, we gained some popularity, and people want to like come in and train, you know, with the best of the best. So I've been like spending a lot of time at the dojo 3 days a week, you know. That's
nice.
Like, yeah, and aside from like, that's already 3 days out of 7 days, and other days spent like I need to do for the podcast. Other days I might have to spend with friends, you know. I have a social life. So yeah, I've been kept pretty fucking busy. And music is also a whole ordeal that takes like whole evenings, you know, to make a song. That takes like preparation, production, planning. I guess now it's just like staying the course, you know?
Yeah.
Which I'm totally okay with doing. I'm sure once you get settled in, you'll come into a similar place.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I hope so.
I feel like you're going to become a writer.
Yeah, everyone says that actually feels like the most natural fit for me. I should just do that. Yeah. I'm already very I've spent enough time drifting around. I need to actually be
Yo, do you want to... I was thinking about starting a Terrorisk blog. Do you want to write for the Terrorisk blog?
Sure.
You could write about whatever the fuck you fancy.
You could just repost me if I write for something else or for like a Substack. Yeah. Or I could write for you too.
Yeah, write for me. Dude.
Or no, I make submissions, I should say.
I think you've been on enough, you've been around Terrorisk enough to know what we're about. You know, like, you know exactly what would stimulate and interest us. Yeah. That would be cool. And you could get your writing chops out there and...
Yeah.
It would be pretty funny. I could imagine you writing some hilarious shit. That would be like... I've read some of this stuff that you're into, and I thought it was always pretty funny. I think you have some funny sensibilities.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Like scientific racism. The only right kind of racism.
Yeah. I mean, that just feels self-evident.
Fuck culture. Pay attention to the phenotypes. You know, like...
Well, culture's important, too. I'm not denying that.
Culture's not your friend, though.
No, it's still my friend. No. I'm very interested in culture.
I'm interested in culture, but I don't lean on it too much.
Yeah. I mean, I lean on biology.
Culture could bite you in the ass.
I lean on nature more than nurture.
Yes.
But I'm very fascinated by culture because it wouldn't be a good I wouldn't be a good hobbyist anthropologist. Just a hobbyist. Without an interest in culture that kind of like starts in the first place.
Yeah. I think everyone should be a hobbyist anthropologist.
It just seems so natural, particularly in a city as diverse. In a city as diverse as New York City, you really need to be a racist. You really need to be a scientific racist in a city like New York City.
You call it racist. I don't call it that at all. I think I call it like more like culturally sensitive.
Yeah, that's a good description too.
Cultural sensitivity is literally racism. You know, if you look at the descriptions of both, they're both. That's exactly what that is. To be culturally sensitive is to segregate people in your mind, you know, as different people, and that's pretty much the basis of racism. Like,
well, the basis of racism is just stereotyping accurately.
Yeah, and to the point where you're allowing that to govern your institutional decisions of your own projects and devices and way of living.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you're a business owner and you're culturally sensitive, you're going to be like, well, I'm not going to hire these people because I'm sensitive to their culture and their inclination towards working, you know, like.
Well, you might if it's cheap enough, but yes, point taken.
That's where cultural sensitivity gets you.
Yeah.
It's no different from racism. Anyway, on that note, on a positive spin, we'll say we'll finish this episode off with our favorite ethnic restaurants. What's your favorite ethnic restaurant in recent memory?
Man, I haven't gone to too many places. I'm usually pretty broke, largely due to my own laziness.
My favorite.
This is a very entry-level one, but I love tasty hand-pulled noodles in Chinatown.
My favorite ethnic restaurant was Mike's Diner.
Where is that?
In Staten Island.
Nice.
And it's just a diner. You know,
so the ethnicity is Americana.
Americano white.
Nice.
They serve a pretty good Eggs Benedict.
Nice.
They got toast and coffee, free refills on the coffee. Do you like diners?
They're so overpriced now, but it's nice to have a place to hang out in late hours.
Yes.
I always liked it aesthetically. I always liked the idea of the food there.
I think when you're
underwhelmed by it.
When you're in the mood for diner food, you're in the mood for diner food. And it's always just enough too. Like I ordered Eggs Benedict with a side of corned beef hash, and it was just enough. I was like, "Yep." Filled me up right to the core. And that corned beef hash, so mighty. Do you like do people ever come up to you and like assume you're like this New Englander?
No, not really.
Where do they assume you're from?
I mean, it's always a possibility. So, I mean, accent, even then, not really. I just get placed at. I'm seen as a very Bushwick type, which is a very accurate or reasonable assessment.
People
could see, like, oh, you're from the South, the Midwest. My accent throws people off. In fact, if anything, I get, like, the South more than New England.
Taketh me to Williamsburg.
Yeah, exactly. Or people ask if I was, like, born in England and mostly raised in America, if I had like a hybrid accent.
So do you like New York?
I love New York.
You like living here?
I love living here.
You think you could spend the rest of your life here?
I would love to spend the rest of my life here. I
really?
don't want to move away. Yeah.
That's heavy. I mean, it's quite a commitment because you're not the last person or the first person who will say those words, moving here.
I'm willing. Okay. Let's say I meet someone and I want to have a family and I have a more steady
You're willing
life.
to raise them in New York City?
Staten Island or Long Island.
Yeah, Staten Island's the best way to go if you want to keep them in the city and raise them.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how long Staten Island's going to stay this kind of like Goldilocks zone of like urban and suburban. I think
there's going to be other parts, other outer boroughs of New York City where we'll be capable of doing that.
What do you mean?
Somewhere within, I would want to stay in New York, but I'm willing to move to the outer suburbs of New York so long as I still have public transportation.
Oh, yeah, like even New Jersey's an option then, like Hoboken
Yeah.
or something, yeah.
Where I'd be willing to have, that's the one thing of like, I'll stay in New York City proper unless I absolutely have to move out of it, in which case I'll move to the outer suburbs.
Yeah, if you
of
had
New
a
York.
family, that's going to really...
I would, Flushing. I'd be fine to be in Flushing.
My dad's raised his fucking family in Flushing.
Or further out, but something like that. Yeah, I would.
I think you should, if you raised a family, you would love Staten Island. You would love life out here. You'd be like, it's quiet. It's so close to Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Yeah. I know you always want me to move out here, but everything's happening in the city, man.
Maybe. I mean, I just hate Brooklyn. I mean, I love hanging out there. I just couldn't live there. I could not fucking live there, ever. I used to live there, and that was nice, but I couldn't go back. Couldn't. Maybe if I was so rich where I could, like, afford some penthouse in downtown Brooklyn, then yeah, for sure, maybe.
Yeah.
But, nah. Like, if I was going to pay that kind of money, I'd rather live in Manhattan. And I would love to live in Manhattan. Living in Manhattan sounds awesome. You get a doorman, you know. You get cool parks,
I mean, you're right in the center of things, yes.
and all the hottest people in New York City always hang around Manhattan.
Yeah, they do.
Especially in the summertime. You just drive around Manhattan, and you're like, damn. These
Yeah, it's
bitches are-
outrageous, actually.
They're
Manhattan
hot.
in the summer.
They are fucking hot.
Yeah.
They're all like gathered to Manhattan. They all want to be there. You know, like that's the spot. And if I could live in Manhattan, that would be the dream. Oh man.
Yeah. Anywhere I could live within the city, the closer to Manhattan, the better, but not necessarily Manhattan, I'd be willing to do.
Well, if I had the money to live in Manhattan, shit. I make about before taxes, I make about 90 grand a year.
Nice.
And even that's not enough to live in Manhattan.
No, it's not. If I had a family, I would even live in, like, Riverdale.
Okay. I would also there's also a Westchester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How close is that?
It's not terribly close, but it's not terribly far either. There's expensive methods of transportation to get here. You know,
I see.
like the metro, whatever. I think New Jersey would also be a really good bet.
Yeah.
But there's like a lot.
I just want to get to a point where if I have teenage kids, they can ride an hour and a half and get into Manhattan, and then I'm worried when they don't come back until very late at night.
That's Staten Island. Staten
Yeah.
Island's, yeah.
That would do it.
Because they could take the ferry directly into Manhattan. and
Right,
take it
yeah.
back. And there's only one train line to worry about in Staten Island that'll take you from North End to South End.
Yeah.
And then you could, if you had a car, you could just pick your kid up from whatever
Yeah.
part, like end to end. Yeah, it's a lot easier that way. I'm telling you, Staten Island is like built to raise a family in New York City.
Yeah, see, I've noticed that, which is why I always tell people I want to move. If I have a family, I
yeah.
want to move to Staten Island.
It's the best thing. I have a friend who's living in some like pretty shabby, like high up apartment, but it's a sick setup. There's like 3
Yeah.
bedrooms. I don't even think he's paying that much, and there's like access to an outside balcony, and it's like one of those houses like overlooking the cliffside.
Nice.
It's like so sick. You could see like the whole like Verrazano Bridge skyline and shit. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, I would be very curious to see where you end up moving here. Anyway, we could close off this episode now. Thank you
Feeling forward.
Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Say goodnight, Carmen.
Good night.
Good night, bitches.